NHS workers are angry. They feel let down, kicked in the teeth by governments who've been offering them insulting 1% pay rises. I'm here with Sean Robertson. Sean's an NHS worker and he's standing as part of the Scottish Trade Unionists and Socialist Coalition election challenge in the Highlands and Islands. Sean, why are NHS workers angry about the pay insult they've been offered?
Well, I think it comes down to the fact that public services, they've been ravaged by unnecessary austerity since 2010. And nurses and other NHS workers have actually seen their wages cut in real terms by 20% over that time. Also, there's to take into account care workers who are also low-paid workers and lack protection such as sick pay. And that makes them choose between going to work sick and, as we've seen in the pandemic, endangering their clients or risking their livelihoods. NHS workers and care workers were on the front line of the battle to get us through the COVID crisis. And in that fight, thousands of them have died. So it's only fair that their pay recognises the indispensable role they play in protecting us all. But on top of that, though, pay restraint has meant that thousands of staff vacancies in the NHS in Scotland have gone unfilled. And this has directly led to the situation where society had to be locked down at the start of the crisis to prevent, and continues to be locked down, to prevent the NHS from being overwhelmed because of low staffing levels, combined with inadequate investment in even basic equipment, which meant that the system couldn't cope with the crisis. So fair pay, a 15% pay rise for NHS staff and a £15 minimum wage in both health and care is a vital priority for all of us.
Thanks, Sean. Now, you're a member of the GMB trade union, and it's very obvious that the unions are going to have to organise to get this justified pay rise for NHS and care workers, or the 15% that you've talked about. So what are we calling on for the trade unions now to do in order to win this pay rise?
Well, I think it's important to take stock of what happened during the pandemic. I think at the start of the crisis, trade unions were slow to act, and they failed to support on demos campaigns organised by grassroots groups like NHS Workers Say No and Nurses United. But pressure from the grassroots has actually forced even unions with right-wing leaderships to finally stand up to the Scottish and UK government to a greater or lesser extent. But there's still a plethora of different tactics and demands being put forward by the unions. And for example, the RCN has announced that they've organised an industrial action fund, which is valued at around 30 million to enable workers to fight back. This is a step change in approach for that union, which previously had a no strike policy. On the other scale of it, on the other hand, Unison have called for a slow clap to show the government that the public is unhappy at the unfair treatment of key workers. This appears to be more of a gimmick, which would do little to appease the feelings of workers. We think that instead unions should work together to put forward a joint proposal which represents the best deal for NHS and care workers from those already tabled. Presently, this seems to be either my union, the GMB's 15% pay rise, or £2 per hour pay rise for NHS staff, and a £15 per hour minimum wage for care workers, or Unite have got a proposal of 15% pay rise or £3,000, whichever is the higher. A united front around a genuine transformative pay offer could lead to a fantastic victory for NHS and care workers, with or without the need for full-scale industrial action. If improved pay offers which meet the needs of workers are not forthcoming, workers should pressure unions to push for industrial action, including, if necessary, strikes, to defend our services. TUSC will fully support all workers in struggle and fight to ensure that NHS and care workers are paid fairly and our services are protected so that avoidable crises caused by the pandemic aren't repeated. The same can't be said for the mainstream parties, though. The SNP and Tories have made insulting pay offers to NHS staff over the last few weeks, and even the Greens refused to back calls for a £15 minimum wage for care workers, making bizarre claims that it would somehow hamper collective bargaining in that sector. But we need to build a society which values those public services and those key workers, rather than making cuts and protecting the interests of big business and the rich. The first step towards doing so is to vote for Scottish TUSC in May, which is a genuine socialist alternative for workers.
Thanks very much, Sean. And at the end of this video, you'll see information about how to get involved in Scottish TUSC's campaign and to help build a movement for genuine pay rises for our NHS, for our care workers, for workers in the public and the private sector, because we're not going back to austerity, we're not going back to cuts, and we're not going back to cuts in income for workers who delivered so much during the pandemic. Thanks for listening.